Hello and welcome back to Nerd News Today, Toy Fair 2021. And we couldn't do a Toy Fair event. We couldn't talk toys in its entire 4-day weekend without talking to Brian Volk-Weiss. He is the man behind the toys that made us and so many other wonderful, nerdy, geeky projects that we love. Brian, how's it going today?
I'm all right, man. How you doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good. So last time we spoke to you was actually when the pandemic had first kind of begun, and you were still actually working on some projects, still had some things in the work. We'll get to that in a few minutes, but first things first, I'd like to ask you the question of this weekend, and that is, Brian, what was your favorite toy as a kid growing up?
I mean, Star Wars, and specifically the Millennium Falcon. That's very easy to answer that.
You say that, but I see the Enterprise right behind you, so I kind of wonder about that.
It's so funny, man. The other image I wanted to use, but you can't find a still that's clear, is when Han is saying goodbye to Lando before the attack on the Death Star 2. But they're in every shot. What I love about this shot is there's like a billionth of a second before it cuts into the scene. So I was able to pull this shot and make it seem like I'm in the restaurant.
I wish I was there right now. It's probably a lot nicer than where I am at the moment, but yeah, yeah. So
Just about any of us are.
absolutely. So let's talk about the pandemic again. And, obviously, I want to talk about all the work you're doing, but how has the pandemic, more importantly, been affecting your toy collecting? Because I know you were making some pretty nice acquisitions. How are we doing now in 2021?
Well, I don't know how it is for other people, but for me, and I will say this, a lot of my friends as well, it has exacerbated toy collecting because before the pandemic, I would, I mean, dude, you'd be sure, I never bought anything on eBay. I really never bought anything online. So I would have to be in Minneapolis with 5 hours to kill to drive to a vintage toy store that I like and buy some cool stuff. The pandemic didn't let me do that. So I was buying a lot of stuff online. The other thing that happened, we have a new show also about toys called A Toy Store Near You. And I always worry this could be some kind of like illegal toy store insider trading.
If such
But
a thing
I'll be
exists.
sitting there. Well, I'll be sitting there at 6:30 in the morning watching Rough Cuts, and there'll be the owner of the store talking about something like bric-a-brac in Chicago. I got that ET finger light from the Billy Galaxy episode. I got that Megatron, the original Takara Walter P38. So that's also not been helping my wallet, but it has been helping my collection.
That's what matters most of all, is that your collection continues to grow and thrive during these horrible times.
It's definitely growing.
And I'm glad you mentioned, of course, the Toy Store near you, because that was essentially your pandemic project in a little bit of a way. And you now have got season two released. That was released on Christmas Day. Really great season. I loved also that you guys listened to the fan feedback, and we talked about that last time we spoke. How folks previously thought there was maybe too much of a focus on the pandemic, and this time around you kept it very story focused, very narrative focused on the stores and on the owners.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean that was absolutely by design. And this season, not only it's really interesting. Not only has this season performed much better than season one, but we have seen season one's numbers go up by almost 50% since season two came out. We're hoping to get at least two more seasons out this year. So my hope is with season three and season four, each season there's going to be less and less and less, and then eventually no COVID whatsoever in any episodes. Be very bad if we're still talking about COVID in 2022, let alone 2024.
Definitely, but I'm glad you're going to keep doing this, and I'm sure it's probably too early to say anything. But can you tease or hint at any stores that are on your radar for upcoming seasons?
No, but we have found a cool way, I think. We found a cool way to let people know how we're going to be doing season three, and we're going to be launching that in February. I don't want to give it away. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to give. I don't want my social media team to kill me.
Or me? They're going to come after me too for making you say it. So yeah, we'll say that
Yeah,
for next
yeah.
time.
You got more to lose than I do.
So yeah, on the topic of toys, of course, your bread and butter over at Nacelle Company has been Toys That Made Us. It's one of my favorites. How I got to do a very first interview with you was about that series. So again, I know we're still talking during the pandemic. I don't know if you guys have been able to continue production, but are there any updates on Toys That Made Us?
The only thing I can tell you about Toys That Made Us is stay tuned. But we did not stop production at all. We have a Disney Plus show coming out later this year. We shot that all during COVID. In fact, we have 10 more episodes of Movies That Made Us coming out this year. All of those were shot during the pandemic. And even the 2 episodes that came out in December, Elf and Nightmare Before Christmas, that was shot entirely with remote camera kits.
And you kind of explained to us how those remote camera kits worked last time also. I think it's just really brilliant how you're doing it. And it's great that you can basically continue with your filmmaking, all that kind of stuff while this crazy thing is happening around the world. So yeah, I love that you're doing that. But I am curious
It's
also,
definitely been crazy. That's the right word for it. Crazy.
and by the way, I know that you were working on a Margaret Loesch documentary too, which I'm super excited for. Cannot wait to see that. How is that going? Are you guys still in production of that, or is that on pause due to the pandemic?
Both. We have started post production, but we absolutely had to pause shooting. We had about 80% done, so that's why we could start editing, but we have to shoot more.
Is that targeted to come out later this year, or is that a 2022 kind of thing, or later?
That's 20. It was supposed to be this year, but it'll be next year.
I know also that you guys just very recently released your very first Peacock special. You did as part of your comedy branch of the Nacelle Company. You guys have Maz Jobrani, Pandemic Warrior. So can you tell us a little about that?
So, I mean, obviously, Peacock they noticed this company named Netflix had arisen. So they were like, maybe we should do that. And one of the things they noticed that Netflix does is a lot of stand-up comedy. So we were very blessed. You know, we got a phone call and we had just acquired Maz's special. And we were like, oh my God, we got the best special for you. And they jumped on it.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks might not realize that, in addition to Toys That Made Us, Toys During a Year, Movies That Made Us, you're also doing a ton of comedy specials. You've been doing that for quite some time also. And I don't know, have you guys been able to film too many more of those in between there? Or what was the last one you guys did that was released?
We filmed 4 specials in July in the parking lot of the Rose Bowl. And those come out in March. We are actually shooting our first 2 traditional specials in about a month in Phoenix.
Interesting. And is that going to be with a live audience as well?
Yeah, and indoors.
Wow. So like social distancing and all that kind of stuff going on?
That's the plan.
Wow. That is ambitious.
We'll see. I mean, you live in New York. I live in LA. Stuff is shut down and whatever. I mean, I have friends in Georgia. You would never know there's a pandemic. So I am definitely a little curious about how this is going to work. But at the same time, I know that because of where I live, like the club's been open for 5 months. Nobody's gotten COVID. So there is a lot of data to support everything will be fine.
I mean, if you guys are following the rules, you're responsible, and I'm sure that you will be. I don't think anything will be wrong. So it's all good. More power to you guys.
We're bringing more rules to Arizona than Arizona has for itself. And that's a literal fact. That's not a joke, though it is maybe a tiny bit funny.
A little bit, yeah, but it's true. It's the truth, yeah. So I also saw that you recently posted on social media. You were watching some Star Trek recently. You said that was part of quote unquote work. And I'm wondering if this is related to perhaps the project you've been working on with Gates McFadden and her upcoming podcast.
No. I mean, sort of, yes. You asked 2 questions there.
I did. I'm sneaking in a question about Gates McFadden's
connected.
podcast, basically, here.
It is not connected to the podcast. We're going to be announcing pretty soon what we're doing, but it is Star Trek related.
All right, well, I'm very excited to, of course, see that because I'm all about the Star Trek. And on that note, I am. That was kind of like my sneaky way to ask you about what you're doing, 2 things in one here. But Gates McFadden, has a podcast as well. It's going to be the first podcast coming from the Nacelle Company. Do we have any information about what the show is going to be about, release date, anything like that yet?
It's not going to be our first. So I just want to address that.
Okay.
But it's weird. And again, I really want Gates to answer these questions because it's her podcast. We're just the production company and the distributor, but it is Star Trek related, but at the same time, it's no, it's funny, man. I think I told you this, maybe, maybe not, but I go to cons, when there's no pandemic somewhat frequently. I never ever go to panels. And the reason why I never go to panels is when I used to go to panels, I was hearing the same people tell the same story every panel. So this podcast deals with that issue where it's like, yes, it involves Star Trek people, but if we do our jobs right, it'll be every piece of information you've never heard before.
Well, I'm just gonna say this, Brian. If you're doing anything like my Trek Untold podcast, we're gonna have a fight here. I'm just letting you know.
I do not want to have a fight with you.
Well,
So
I will win that fight. I'm just saying right now, just
I
letting you know.
believe you would. I believe you would.
So beyond that stuff, is there anything else that you're working on these days that you can tell us about or tease about, perhaps?
We have this show we're doing with Dwayne Johnson and his company $7 for Disney Plus called Behind the Attraction. That's about to start getting press and all that's about to begin. We have this thing we're doing on Star Trek that I can't talk about. We got movies that made us, 10 more episodes coming out, 2 more seasons of A Toy Store Near You, stand-up specials. And then it's funny, I'm looking around to see what we're all doing. So I literally have stuff taped to my computer. And then a whole bunch of shit I can't talk about.
That's how it goes. That's entertainment right there. And yeah, I'm really
Exactly.
excited to see what you guys do with Star Trek, everything else. I mean, honestly, it sounds like you guys are way busier during the pandemic than you were before it.
I don't know if it was because of the pandemic or coincidental, but we it was absolutely our busiest year ever.
It's funny because I've heard that from a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of toy companies during this weekend, and a lot of them have said, despite everything that's going on, it's been one of their most profitable years. And in this case, it seems like it's been one of the most productive years for the Nacelle Company.
Yes, and by the way, the toy stores too. Almost every toy store I spoke to in April or May thought they were going to go out of business, and by September, all of them were saying they were having the best year in the history of the store.
So, last thing for today, Brian, what is the number one toy release that you are waiting for and looking forward to the most in 2021?
New toy?
Well, let's start with new toy. Then I'll ask you about any Grail stuff. Let's start with new toy that's coming out that there's maybe a pre-order or that is going to be coming on the way in the next few months or whenever.
Well, I hope Brian Flynn doesn't get pissed at me for saying this, but I hope he doesn't get pissed at half of what I'm about to say. But I'm not a Thundercats fan. But God, do I love the Thundercats, the Thunder Tank, I think is what it's called. They're putting out a version of it that looks like it's from the cartoon, like it was torn out of the TV. And I am so excited about that. The other thing I'm excited about, and I don't know if this is cheating because I ordered it last year, but I don't have it and it's not coming till May. But what I believe to be the craziest scene in the history of any American animated film ever is that bonkers scene in Transformers, the movie, where those crazy shark people are throwing Transformers into acid. And then there's those sharks eating them while they're dying of acid burns.
That was the Sharkticons.
Yeah. Hasbro Pulse put out a what do you call it? A package that's the 3 floating heads, and I have that coming in April.
I'd say that counts. I mean, I'm personally still waiting. Speaking of Super 7, my New Japan Pro Wrestling figures, because I've been waiting for those for over a year now. I'm dying to get my hands on those. And I also know Super 7 just announced their Star Trek TNG figures. So, it's going to be a Star Trek heavy year between them and XO6. So much going on there.
Yes.
In terms of older toys, though, I know you've got plenty of things that you're probably watching on your eBay watch list now, but what are you eyeballing these days? What are you looking for?
You give me too much credit if you think I even know what an eBay watch list is. But does it count if it arrived in 2020, but I haven't opened it yet? Does that count?
I'll let you have that one. I'll let you count that one. Yep.
So I finally succumbed and bought a USS Flag. And part of the reason I haven't opened it yet is I have to, it's so big, I had to get more shelves, move a refrigerator, and then put the shelf in the place where the refrigerator used to be so I can move other stuff to make room for the flag. It's literally like how the Space International Space Station was built, where they put two things up, move one, move like they had to keep moving them around. Like, so this weekend, I believe all the shelf moving will be done. And then next weekend, I can start building my flag.
Well, good luck, Brian. It sounds like we're never going to see you again because you're going to be building that thing for quite some time. So, yeah, best of luck with that.
Thank you so much.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for being part of Nerd News Today Toy Fair 2021. And of course, anybody out there who wants to follow Brian, follow the Nacelle Company, we're going to have links in our description below. So make sure you guys do check that out. And of course, if you haven't watched a toy store near you yet, I don't know what's wrong with you. Get on that because it's a lot of fun, really great show. And support your local toy stores because they need a lot of help right now.
Yes.
And we should
Thank you.
actually mention it here. By watching those videos, you're actually also directly supporting them because proceeds from the profits of that show are going back to the toy stores, right?
That's entirely accurate. Yes.
So even more reason to watch the series if you haven't yet. So Brian, thank you so much for your time today. And stick around, folks, because we got more Nerd News Today Toy Fair 2021 coming right up.